Hello.
Yay. Can you hear me?
I can.
I can hear you.
Excellent.
All good. I'm
I'm excited to do this.
I'm excited too. I'm quite tired from the day. We just went back to school today after the long week, and first day back is always tragic. But I'm here. I'm here. We're doing this. So, welcome to the podcast, Change for the Better, the Power of Arts in Education.
I'm Stacy Tiro, a high school performing arts teacher for over 25 years. I've taught a lot of amazing people. Now that so many of my students are adults, they'll teach me how, through the lessons in my classroom, they have been changed for the better.
Today, we are with episode 11. I can't believe this is 11 that we're doing here. It's crazy. Speaking of crazy, this person that I'm looking at here was the first freshman to be cast in I think it was our first production of Crazy for You. We had done 2 over the years, but this was the first. At the time, we were a 3-year high school that were just going into a 4-year high school. So she was like the first freshman class in our building. And so thus she was the first freshman to be cast in a musical, which is very exciting. Nice little tidbit. Then she did Guys and Dolls and Anything Goes and Kiss Me Kate. And she was sort of one of my diva dancers, that developed over the years. She wound up being my dance captain for her junior and her senior year for her last 2 shows. And I have had the pleasure of observing her grow into a confident, organized, responsible young woman, into an older young woman. And I've been really happy to be a part of the different facets of this evolution into her adulthood. So when she was back in high school, she really helped me to build the strong foundation of dance at Spring Valley High School that, we've kind of become known for. And it was kids like her, and she took dance very seriously, and she still does actually. But she helped to create the mold for the future classes that came in year after year after year. This was kind of the foundation. I'll let her tell you when she graduated. We're going back.
Time ago.
We're going back. Now she is married, and she's working as a video producer for an advertising agency. She's like kind of important in that way. And she is using her hefty leadership and organizational skills to lead her own production teams now, which is like very, very cool. So we're going to head right into question number 1, easiest question of the day, which is, what is your name and the year you graduated? And give me more about what you do now.
So my name is Hilary Becker-Jarusinsky, and I graduated in 2003, which is crazy.
That would be 19 years ago.
I know.
Ew.
And I am a video producer for an advertising agency. So I produce TV commercials, social media campaigns, photography. Basically, if you've seen it, my hands have probably touched it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, she's kind of important in that way. Can you reveal the name of your company?
Yeah, so I work it gets complicated, but I work for a company that's called Link 9, which is basically the production hub for all of Omnicom Health Group. So, yeah.
Now, I remember you used to do like medical commercial kind of things. Is that still in your wheelhouse?
Yeah, that's still in the wheelhouse. And so basically, there are 9 or 10 agencies within this umbrella group, and I can produce content for any of them. So yeah, I work on all different brands, all different, medications, healthcare stuff. It's there's a lot.
You create the pretty stuff for them
I do.
so that we buy that stuff.
Exactly.
I see. So yes, that's a very grown-up thing to do. Okay, so let's start by looking back. So I want you to use your adult brain to describe your adolescent self.
Okay. All right. So this is probably still true today, but
Mhm.
I think even back then I was an introverted extrovert in the sense that like I make friends very easily, like I'm very social, but at the same time I have to be comfortable with you in order to like really come out of my shell.
Mhm.
And I think that was even probably more the case when I was in high school, but that still applies somewhat now.
Sure.
Um, and I was definitely insecure, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of high school kids are insecure.
What teenagers aren't insecure? That's the thing that I'm trying to bring out, is that everybody who I speak to in this podcast has some sort of insecurity about something. And
Mhm.
it's just like across the board, so many threads just run through each person. I want adolescents now to know that, they're not alone, and even when you're an adult, and you'll grow out of some of these insecurities,
Yeah,
but we're human beings, and we do feel insecure about, a lot of things. We just learn how to manage it when we get older.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so now, at the time when you were in high school, we didn't have the dance studio like we
Nope.
have now. That came in about 2005, just a couple of years after you graduated. But and when we were rehearsing or we were doing dance classes, it was in the gym, which was like right next to where basketball and volleyball was being
Yes.
played. So it was, we've definitely grown from those times. And I think we did play rehearsals like in the theater. Like we
We did play rehearsals in the theater or in the music room if the theater was being used.
Right. If crew was working, we would
Mhm.
flip into the right. So when I say the studio, I'm talking any place where you did these artistic things, whether it was the dance classes or rehearsals. Okay. So if you can bring back something that happened in the studio that helped you to manage or to regulate your adolescent self, and it doesn't have to be like one thing that happened, it can be a little bit more generalized if you can't think of one specific thing.
So this may not answer the question, but like because I grew up dancing and I was like, by the time I was in high school, I was in like all the advanced classes and with like other peers who were just better dancers than I was. And they were also like the ideal dancer body type, which I was not. I'm still not. And so I think like being in the studio and being able to actually like excel and like be one of the like better dancers actually like helped me like grow very confident because I wasn't getting that like in like dance class. I was getting that like being in thespians and like learning how like what my limitations were like in dance versus like what I could do, you know, in the theater.
Yeah, you were valued there
Yes.
in a greater way. Yeah, it's very true, because when you're when you're directing in a high school where there's not a lot of people with training, with private training, which that's where we are. Anyone who brings to the table any sort of training, I'm just like, yeah, come on, bring it on. And so it was really quite a gift to me. And not only to have like your skill and your training and your performance quality, but also your brain, because you had one of those like steel trap memories to hold on to choreography, so that, I would put something out there, and, if I go, oh gosh, what was that? You're like, I'm like, there, what she did. See, she
It's
remembers.
still like that.
Yeah. And the really cool thing about that is that once you graduated and you went to college and you came back and you were looking for dance opportunities, I was teaching, this is for anybody who's watching, I was teaching a private tap classes in a local studio. And Hilary was like, hey, can I come and take class? I'm like, yeah, sure, bring it on. So for years, she would come into the class with me, and then like the teenagers. And so she was like the older person in the teenage class, which was incredible. And then eventually she wound up like subbing for me. If I was like, Hilary, I can't come in for XYZ. I'm like, could you sub for me? And she's like, yeah, no problem. And then eventually she wound up like teaching her own classes. So it all kind of came full circle, which was it was great for me to see that transition, and how confident she was able to bring that confidence to the table in an educational way.
Yeah. And I loved, like, I think being part of Thespians in general, like, it really taught me, like, before that, I was a dancer, but I wasn't necessarily a performer. And I think having that confidence, like being one of the like relied upon dancers, like gave me the confidence to actually perform too.
Mm-hmm.
And that like also resonated through college, and it resonated like, a lot of, 20 something year olds probably would have been intimidated going into a class with a bunch of teenagers. And I just didn't care because like I
no
just did it.
And I remember they would look at the, like, is she doing it? Okay, her feet, okay, good. Like if I'm doing like her, okay, we're good. Yeah. All right, let's move on to question number 4. So what are some of the lessons that you learned in the studio, right, at Spring Valley, that you think about or that you use today, you brought into your adulthood?
I think there's 2.
Mm-hmm.
The first is like, is pay it forward. So when I was the first freshman in the musical, like I legitimately, there were no other freshmen in there, and it was mostly seniors. And they all kind of just like took me under their wing, and they were kind of like this protective shield of people who were like, if you mess with her, you have to mess with us. And like, some of these people were very popular in school. So I learned to like do that for like the next group of freshmen and like that came in like after us, because like I felt the need that like these people took care of me, like I should do the same thing for people that are also coming in. And I feel like I did.
Oh, you did.
And then the other thing is that like you really trusted me in terms of like my junior and senior year when I was dance captain. You would be like, here's like 4 counts of 8, go choreograph something. Or like I distinctly remember one time you told me to go teach Trang how to be cute. And I think like your trust in me gave me trust in myself that I could do those things.
Yeah. I find that all the way through today, where kids don't trust themselves. They don't understand that, that they have gifts that they can rely upon. They can be relied upon. So when I give them little bits like that, they're like, I'm like, shut up and go, just go. You can do this, go, And I think a lot of that was when I was learning how to become a teacher, because I didn't go to school originally to become a teacher. I was going to be a performer. And, at some point you find yourself in front of a classroom and you're like, well, now I got to produce something, and so you have no choice but to rely on yourself to say, I have the creativity and I have the leadership and I have the organizational skills. I have all of these things. Now I just have to like apply it and do something with it. And so since that was such a valuable thing for me, I was like, well, that's valuable for anybody. Anybody can benefit from that. So,
and it was really beneficial, like as like this insecure teenager who was like trying to find out who she was, to like know there was an adult that trusted me. And I also think like, and I didn't know it at the time, but it also like kind of paved the way for me to learn how to teach. Mm-hmm. So that when I was teaching dance, like I had the confidence to do it. I also, watched you do it and like learned a lot from watching you teach too. But I think then I didn't know I was going to teach dance for like, 5, 6, 7 years, but I think that was probably like the start of me knowing that I could do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes you just got to get thrown to the wolves and hope for the best. But then when it works and they listen to you, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I have a little authority here. Well, let's just keep going. See if we can make them happy and laugh and smile and do some really cool creative things. Yeah. So how do you think that you have changed since you graduated from high school?
I'm 100% confident. Like, I'm just like, I know who I am, and like, I don't really care if you like me or don't like me. Like, this is who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I was not like that in high school. And I'm like, I mean, I was independent in high school, but now I'm like uber independent. Like, it takes a lot for me to like ask for help because I have like this need to do everything on my own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That independence comes from experience. It comes from being trusted. It comes from trying things out. And when you're just starting out in high school, that's you don't always have those opportunities, coming in. But I think the value of, being in the arts, because there are so many different roles in the arts, different places where you can find your niche and fit in. You get those foundational experiences that inform you as a person of, what your value actually is. And it's different for every kid. I think that's what's so nice about it. It's so individualized that you can pull so much from the same project, pull, hundreds of different things. So I'm glad that confidence came from those experiences for you.
Yeah. And I
So
think like in general, like I think the arts are undervalued in the sense that like they give a sense of purpose to like even adults that like other things that are not artsy like can't do. Like I got good grades. Like I was, I had a great GPA, but like I never got like the self-satisfaction like that I did from the arts that like I think that was backwards, but like I got more self-satisfaction from like doing art stuff, and that's why like what I do for a living is arts based than I ever did like learning, algebra.
That's the nice thing about theater. It's such a participatory thing. Like your whole body, your whole mind has to be a part of it, whether you're performing or you're on tech. Like your whole being is like getting poured into a project that like something happens out of it. And then, people clap, and that makes, adolescents feel really good. And so they keep coming back for more. And I always feel bad for the seniors who like their first experience is like the spring of their senior year. And they're like, why didn't I find this thing before? I'm like, you weren't quite ready for it, I guess. I don't know. I wish I could have had you as a freshman, because look what we could have done for 4 years. But everybody finds it in their own time, and they get out of it, what they need. And it's such an authentic way of learning about yourself and learning what you can do. So, what would like adult Hilary today tell your high school self now to ease the way?
I think like, and I'm sure other people have said this, but like, I think I would tell like high school me that like it gets better. Like, not that high school was bad. Like, I had a great group of friends. Like, I had great experiences. But like, I think that how do I phrase this the right way? Having the body type that I had, still do. Like, sometimes high school was rough, and like it got better. Like in college, after college, like it just didn't matter as much anymore. And I think like if I could tell my high school self that, I think I would like have been less stressed, if that makes sense.
It's never going to get any better. Yeah, no, it's true. And that is a thread whether it's body image or it's, anything else that kids stress about, the message always has been coming back to me, like, it's not all that, or it's not that bad, or you're not going to remember it like this, when you're 10 years from now, which of course is hard for them to absorb when they're, in the moment. But I do feel if they could get the messaging, in that moment, that like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be good.
And like, I mean, I'm totally dating myself. Not that saying what year I graduated high school isn't dating myself, but like, there was no social media. So like, I couldn't even imagine like the pressure that like high school students put on themselves now because there is social media. And like, I put so much pressure on myself, and that didn't even exist.
The social media piece is so, it's so big. Like, it's so overwhelming, and it takes up so much of their mental energy. I can't imagine being a teenager now. And I have 2 teenagers, I can't imagine. And one of them, like, she's like, she doesn't do most of the social media. I think she's just like one thing that's the only thing that she does. But and the anxiety brains that are going on now. I mean, if people were anxious, 10, 20 years ago, now it's just off the charts. And the social media I truly believe, has made that go into a whole different universe than when we were growing up. And I'm a bunch older than you, so. but not as much older as some of the later people that I've been interviewing. It's like, oh my God, you're still babies. Now it's like, Hilary, well, you're not a baby anymore.
No.
But it's all good. All right. So what is something that you're grappling with now? What's something that you're struggling with now?
So like, I'm sure a lot of people, the pandemic, like, it was rough from like a mental perspective. And like, I've had a really hard time probably over the last like 6 months to a year trying to like figure out who I am as a person, because a lot of the things that I used to love, like, I wasn't doing. Like, a lot of, like, as I said before, I'm a really social person. I wasn't seeing people. And so I've been struggling, is the right word, to like redefine who I am, or refind myself again, and like all of the things that like make me me.
Right. I can relate to that. And not from the pandemic perspective, because honestly, in the pandemic, I actually was able to find things about myself that I didn't really know were there. So like, new things came out that I didn't even know to be able to explore, until I had the time and space to do it. And like, I wasn't, going to work, going to the building every day. And so I had a lot more, downtime to go, okay, like, so what creative outlet am I going to do now? But in terms of that redefining of yourself, and it's a thing as you get older too. It's not just because of the pandemic, but you get older, you get into different phases of your life, and things shift. Like, your perception of yourself shifts, and like, you're married, and you're, kind of early on in your marriage, but then, that stuff shifts too. And then who you are in that relationship, and your relationship to everything else, and to your parents, like the whole thing, just, it's not static. And because you wind up saying, okay, well, who am I now? There's a lot of questions that come up. And it does sometimes get a little overwhelming. I can see the struggle. The struggle is real.
The struggle is real. And like, I don't think I like realized it. Like, I think the pandemic kind of like heightened the like need to like figure out who I was again, because like I'd been like so focused on work and so focused on like my like friendships and like all these kinds of things that like I was like, oh, I'm not really doing the things that I used to really love to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also I think early on, and I remember this, like early on in your career was kind of like about the climb, like you were you were trying to
Yes.
like step into the next role and get a bigger piece of the job. And then like you got to a sort of a position where you were like, ah, I have arrived. And then like when you're in that I have arrived place for a while, then it's like, am I still climbing? Like what am I
Yes.
doing here?
Yes. The struggle is real.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that. Well, so if you're comparing, if you're comparing your high school self with your adult self, right? So can you tell me like one thing that you miss about your high school self and one thing that has like gotten better as your adult self?
All right. I think like the thing I miss about my high school self is like I like the innocence of high school in a way. Like the like yes, like high school is dramatic and there's all these hormones and you're like trying to figure out who you are, but like at least back when I was in high school, I think it's different now. Like a lot of what was happening in the world like was not like in my purview. Like it was just like I'm a high school student and like this is what I do. And I sometimes miss that, I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
Um so that I think is like what I miss about being in high school.
Mhm.
And I think like stuff that's better is like I don't put up with a lot of like BS. Like if like I don't like that's who I am as a person, and I probably put up with a lot of it in high school because like I didn't know how to like voice like my thoughts and like stand up for myself, and I feel like that is something that I grew into as an adult, is like learning to be like, this is not okay, this is why it's not okay, like either apologize or like it's time to move on.
And it's funny because I think you definitely had that quality, that no BS quality, but it's almost like when you're a teenager, you don't always feel like you have the authority to assert that. But I definitely think it was always there, and you all often looked at situations and you were like, no, but like you maybe you didn't, you weren't able to like
Yeah.
pursue that. But I definitely think that is who you are, man.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
who
I
you are.
also just did like the producer 101 no, which was knocked the table so that makes the video shook.
That's okay. This is not a super uber professional thing here, so that'll be okay. Okay. So now using that adult brain of yours, if you could give a piece or several pieces, some people have like one thing and then sometimes they say one thing and then they say like five other things. If you could give a piece of sage advice to high school students now, what would it be?
All right. I have two. The first is you don't have to have it all figured out by the time you graduate. Like I think a lot of people feel pressured to like know what they're going to major in and like know what they're going to do for the rest of their life, like even before they've gotten to college or before they've, whatever they decide to do in life.
Yeah.
And that's really like not the case. Like you have time to figure it out, and you have time to like explore like what makes you happy and like what will make you happy as a career.
That's true.
And then the other piece of advice is you're allowed to change your mind. So like I know several people who were in the film and video program with me when I was in college, and none of them still do film except for me. Like you are allowed to change your mind.
And are they okay now?
They are. They've
Good.
all like one's a teacher, one's a social worker, one does like computer tech, and they're all happy.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I I think every kid needs to understand that more times than not, like you're going to college. I mean, some people know exactly what they want and that's what they pursue and they move forward with that. But I think more times than not, kids go to college for the discipline, for the social interaction, for, learning more how to learn in a deeper way. So that, you might get to the end of your degree program and decide, oh, well, I don't want to do that. But that gave me the skills to be able to pursue this other thing. And that's really what I want to do. And then you go on and get more education, or you create a business or whatever it is that you're going to do. But it's true. Like even in college, pick something to pursue, but then it's okay to do something different after that.
And it's like okay for the plan to change. So like, I was definitely one of the kids who was like, I know exactly what I want to do with my life. And like, this is what I'm going to do. But like, I had to deviate from the plan in the sense that like, I always wanted to like work for Disney and be in like graphic arts and like animation. And like, I didn't get into the art programs anywhere. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I still achieve this goal?
Mhm.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to major in film and video. And that's what I did.
So is Disney still an aspiration for you?
Sure is.
She's going to keep chasing that mouse.
Yes.
But I think that's great. We have different levels of goals, and, some feel like they're like the really big reaches, but if you don't set goals, if you don't have, that vision board of the things that you really, really want, what's that high level thing, then you're going to limit yourself. You're always going to limit yourself. And maybe you get it and maybe you don't, but you've got to be able to dream it in order to pursue it. So
I agree. Like, it's definitely like a pie in the sky dream, but like at the same time, like trying to get to that pie in the sky dream is also what has like made me grow so much in my career, and like will continue to like push myself to grow in my career.
And doors open, opportunities happen like all the time. And it's never when you are looking for it. It's never when you want it, but something happens and it's like, oh, that now I'm supposed to look at that thing. Oh, and so you keep pursuing it, but you do the work that you're doing now in preparation for that next step. Yes, thank you for saying that. So now this really has nothing to do with high school, but it has to do with like your adulting practices. So I say 3, it could be more, it could be less, but what are 3 self-care practices that you do now to help to center or regulate yourself?
So the first one is I recently got back into dancing, which I'm super excited about. Plug for Spotlight Dance Ensemble. Um, and like dance was always like a way for me to kind of center myself. And if I was like feeling a particular emotion, kind of like dance it out of me. And I think having that again has really helped like focus me mentally, because like if I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry and it's Sunday, I'm like, it's time to go dance it out.
Is this an adult, like an adult company kind of thing?
It is. It's 18 and over.
Oh.
And they choreograph all their own pieces, and it's like just a great group of people.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I keep wondering if I should try joining something like that, although my adult body, my 50-year-old adult body doesn't always.
I feel like you could do it. What else do? I read. I've always really enjoyed reading. And so like that kind of like calms the brain, and like, like I try and read every night. So like even if it's only for half an hour, it just kind of like settles everything that's going on inside of here.
Pulls you out of your own head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I like creative outlets. Like I haven't been in forever, but I'm actually going back tomorrow for the first time in 8 years. So I used to do ceramics, like, and like paint ceramics and stuff. And like I stopped because when I was commuting into the city, like I wasn't getting home until 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. And like I'm like, well, I work from home. Like maybe I should do this again. And so like I'm going back to like my artsy stuff.
That's the best. That's the best. Man, the arts, you can't go wrong. There's so many ways to do it, whether it's performing or visual or tech, or there's so many ways to do it. Just keep your hands in it. It's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you, my Hilary. Oh,
You're welcome.
Have you been tapping at all? Like, have you found a place to tap?
Yeah, so in the ensemble, there's one tap piece, so I tap.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's to the 42nd Street opening, and so it's super fast.
What goes around comes around. That's amazing. Hilary was in 42nd Street in her sophomore year. You didn't do 42nd Street? Man, I had that. Oh, no, you did not. That's right. That was in the 2006. That was a couple years after you graduated. Oh, right.
Crazy for you though. There was tapping in that. And I was tapping in Anything Goes.
Oh yeah. When I see that's the thing. I always try and capitalize on the talent that I know is coming up. So if I know that I have got a bunch of tappers, which at the time I did, I'm like, okay, now we're going to do a tap show. No, that's the fun thing. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me for this chat.
So much fun.
Yeah. Looking back at high school, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's also weird to be on this side where I'm being asked the questions and not like behind the camera, making sure like the right questions are getting asked. Like this is a new experience.
See, I'm all about giving people new experiences. It's a new experience for me too. Like this whole concept of podcasting and asking people questions and engaging in conversation, because you're in extroverted, introverted, extrovert. I'm more on the introvert side. I can be extroverted, but I'm much more happy, sort of being quiet in a corner. And so to engage people in these conversations, luckily I get to control the question. And
I have to say though, you're a very good interviewer, so don't cut yourself short.
Good. Well, this is coming from a pro, so I'm good about that. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Join me next week for our next episode of Change for the Better, the Power of Arts in Education. Thank you.